Hey everyone, it's Nathan from Black Belt MTG. I am back with another video today, and I've gotten a lot of requests to go over the some of the cards from the new set. So we're about, as I'm recording this, we're a few days out from Murders of at Kharlov Manor going live, and I got a lot of questions about a few cards in the sets in like how they relate to Zoo, whether I think they'll be playable cards or how would I build around them, things like that. So I'm going to go over a few of the cards that really stand out to me from the set. This is going to be a shorter video, but we'll get right into it. Starting off, the card that I'm probably most excited about, this is not the one I get the most questions about, that one will be at the end, but this is the one I'm most excited about, is Pick Your Poison. So if we look at this, it's for 1 green mana, it's a sorcery, and it gives us one of 3 options. We can have an opponent sacrifice an artifact, have an opponent sacrifice an enchantment, or have them sacrifice a creature with flying. So I think this card will be very strong in the Zoo sideboard. And the reason is because it's just, the optionality is really hard to beat. It's a 1 mana answer to a lot of cards that we want sideboard answers for in the formats. For example, I can think of, sacrificing artifacts and enchantments. That's going to be very relevant against Amulet Titan, against Hammer Time, even against like Blood Moon decks, against like Fable the Mirror Breaker, like a lot of cards that hits, 1 mana is really nice for that. We're already playing stuff like Natural State, which is an instant, so that's a little better in that sense. But other than being an instant, I feel like this card is probably an upgrade to Natural State because you can hit any artifact. And because it's a sacrifice trigger, it means you can also hit indestructible artifacts. So you can force an opponent to sacrifice their ring. You're hitting enchantments like Urza Saga. That's a really big deal. So I think this card will be an include as a 2 to 3 of in the sideboard moving forward. The last clause is obviously very relevant for Murktide. That's kind of the biggest deck where, like I said, that versatility is very rare to find a card that can hit artifact and enchantment matchups and also hit Murktide. Or it can kill a Ledger Shredder, or it can kill a DRC. Those are all like great for 1 mana. So I think this card's gonna be very good. Like I said, it's a 2 to 3 of in the sideboard. If I look at my most recent list, I think it's gonna come down to, the stuff I'm running in my sideboard at a given time is like Prismatic Ending. I've got Force of Vigor. I've got this was Natural State before. It could be Natural State. So I've got Prismatic Ending, Force of Vigor. I've got things like Celestial Purge. I've got Terra Sunder, so I'm not exactly sure what it's going to replace. I think this card could replace Terra Sunder entirely. It could replace you have a few options. I think it'll allow you to consolidate spots. So like, for example, if I take those 2 and maybe I put 3 in the sideboard, and that means I only need to play 2 Force of Vigor and 1, I basically free up a sideboard slot by doing that. And that might end up be what I do. I can see, like, there are some certain times where you like having Terra Sunder, like the optionality to exile anything is really nice, and instant speed is really nice. So against Murktide, for example, one of the reasons I played Terra Sunder is because it's versatile against Murktide. Like if they play Blood Moon, that's good, you can kill it. But more importantly, if they play Murktide late in the game and you top deck this, you can kill it. But now it's like, okay, well, I have a 1 mana answer to kill Murktide, so maybe I don't need Terra Sunder for that same reason. Because this 1 mana answer also answers Blood Moon. So it's almost like a bet, and it kills 1 ring, stuff like that. So it's like very similar, but maybe slightly better. It's more mana efficient, stuff like that than Terra Sunder. So I could definitely see this being a replacement of some number of Force of Vigor or Terra Sunders, and maybe it just allows you to free up another slot for something else. So that's what I'm kind of most excited about. I just don't know if it's going to replace Prismatic Ending, if it's going to replace Terra Sunder, or like your Natural State / Force of Vigor. It might replace all of them. I have to play around with it a little bit. I haven't been able to test the card, but I think it's going to be very strong. So I could see definitely running it, like I said, as a 2 or 3 of. Maybe that frees up 1 more spot for us to do different stuff here. Moving over, so like I said, Pick Your Poison I think is the strongest card for Modern, for Zoo specifically in this set. And I think if you're playing in the RC or playing in tournaments, I'd recommend like trying to get this pre-release weekend for the US RC at least, because I know it's, I think, a week after the pre-release weekend is when the US RC is. So it's a common, so it should be pretty easy to get a hold of from people who are drafting or whatever. But I recommend at least getting a 2 of, and I think maybe 3 of could even be correct in the current meta. Okay, moving on to the second card. So I've also gotten some questions about Breakout. So this is a red-green sorcery, and then you look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them. If that card has mana value 2 or less, you may put it on the battlefield and it gains haste until end of turn. If you don't put the revealed card in the battlefield, put it into your hand. Basically, I think this obviously has like very good synergy with like a big 2 mana threat. So like Kavu, of course, it's going to be really strong if you're like reveal Kavu, get to play it, get to attack with it, get to loot or exile right away. Like that's really strong. I think the trickiness with this card is like you have to run. I think Aspiring Spike had in his video, he talked about some of the numbers of like in order to have this like be consistent, like 95+%, you have to run like 24 creatures, which is like very high. I think that's going to be the challenge with fitting this in. I don't think this fits exactly in the regular zoo list because even like my regular list is only running 20 creatures, and really you need like you said, you need even more than that to make it like maybe like 22, 23 to make it a little more consistent. So I don't think it'll fit exactly in the regular shell. But what I think it maybe could fit is something like a General Ferris Rockerick build. So these builds have fallen off a little bit. There's ones with Cascade, and then there's non-Cascade versions as well. And all of them are trying to take advantage of this clause that whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a 4/4 red and white golem artifact creature token. So a lot of the typical lists that we're playing Cascade stuff is like, hey, I'm trying to Cascade into like Manamorphose, into Kavu, into a multicolored spell to trigger Rockerick and then do something else as well. So I could see application with that. Like if you know, maybe you trigger Rockerick with a Breakout because it is multicolored. That's nice. I think the only downside of this is that you're not actually you're putting the card from your hand onto the battlefield. You're not actually casting it, so you're not going to get 2 Rockerick triggers out of this. Like if you were able to flip a Kavu, and that's a little bit of a bummer. I think if I had to again try to like build around with this card, then I'd do something like what Dakfane07 does here. And again, I recommend you check him out on YouTube. He does a lot of brewing, so I'm sure he's going to be brewing with all these new cards and comes up with good stuff. So this was his older build. This was obviously before Beanstalk and Fury was banned. So he was playing a list with the Rockerick Cascade cards and stuff like that. So I think there could be some synergy with the new card here because if you notice, like this deck's just running a lot of creatures in general. So even though you don't have a lot of 2-mana creatures, like you could definitely play a version that's not Cascade, and then it's maybe playing some delayed halflings, maybe playing some other kind of cheaper spells just to get like more hits off of the card. But obviously you have to find something else besides Fury and Beanstalk. But you know, this could be an idea where you're like, hey, this is just a good multicolored spell, can give me some value, can trigger Rockerick and things like that. And like even if you put a Bloodbraid Elf to hand or something like that the following turn, that's like still fine. Or, and in cast the following turn, like that's still fine. Like same with like putting Shardless to hand and stuff like that. So you might be able to create, if you take Teferi out or something like that, I don't know, you might be able to play around with this to get the creature density high enough where you're always getting like good hits off of it. So anyway, that's kind of what my first thought of is where would this fit. I don't think it exactly fits in like the classic, like the classic zoo shell that I'm playing here. I just don't think we have enough kind of hits for it, and it's just like I just think the list is too tight, and I don't see it fitting with all the interaction we have too. But I think it could definitely be fit in like a Rockerick list or maybe something else. Like I said, you can check out Dak Faden and see what he comes up with because he will be brewing with all this stuff when it comes out. Okay, and then moving on to the third card that everyone has asked me about most. Okay, this is Leyline of the Guildpact. Obviously, this mana cost is crazy. The thing to know is like you basically play any mana for it. But this also allows Gigantha, so that's the other thing. So if you have Gigantha in your sideboard, you can still play it with a Leyline of the Guildpact, which is kind of a fun fact. But anyway, it is a Leyline, so it's got the normal Leyline text where if it's in your opener, you can start the game with it on the battlefield. And then each non-land permanent you control is all colors. Lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. So what do we do with this card, right? So I've seen a lot of people who are saying like, oh, it's amazing. Like you won't even have to crack fetch lands and things like that. Like just jam it in the regular zoo list. And I think I don't think the payoff is good enough to just put in the regular zoo list. And the reason is because I think it'll be a little clunky. It'll be very clunky as a top deck. The regular zoo build doesn't have a great way to get rid of extra cards or bad cards. Like we're not playing pitch elementals, and we're also we have Kavu, and that's basically it. So you don't have a way to get rid of those extra ley lines that you might just are going to have as top deck draws. So I think that's kind of the downside with it. And I think the upside isn't enough for the stock list. Like, yes, you don't have to crack fetch lands, but there's not a lot of matchups today that pressure life total that much. Like, burn, like maybe rhinos, but like, you can basically pay anywhere from 3 to 5 life to have your mana fixed for the whole game without having to put this card in here. So that's kind of my thought process of why I don't like it in the main shell, in the regular shell. I do think it could fit in a shell that you kind of build around a little more. And my first thought of, after thinking about this for a while, where I think this fits is in a kind of a zoo reanimator deck. So this is another, again, Dakfane07 brew. So he was doing he's played around with a bunch of different versions of this kind of deck, okay? So this was one using invasions when they first came out that have some cool synergies. But basically the concept with this deck is you have Sign of Draco, you're trying to cheat in, you're playing Undying Malice plus Persist. So you're trying to either, cheat in an Archon by, putting it in the graveyard. Maybe you discard it to one of these. These things have discard triggers. So you discard Archon to one of these and then put it in the graveyard, and then you can reanimate it or something like that. Because you have Kavu to discard stuff, things like that. This was obviously playing Fury. So I think this archetype got hurt a lot by the Fury ban, because Fury was like so good as it's in a lot of games even better than Grief as a Undying Malice or Persist target. That's kind of the downside. But I think what you could do, what I'm thinking with the new Leyline of the Guildpact, is basically what you could do is take out, you're going to keep everything the same. You're going to have your Kavus. You're going to, obviously, you don't have Fury anymore. And you're going to take out these invasions. So you're going to replace, I think you could replace Fury with Solitude. It's not as good because you're going to gain your opponent's life. But I think it might do enough to still win the game. So I'm thinking like you replace Fury with Solitude, and then you have to figure out, you replace the invasion with the new Leyline of the Guildpact. And then from there, I think you have to fit in like more white cards. So I think you cut the ring entirely and then play Leyline Binding, and then that'll give you, let's see, 8 white cards for 4 Solitude. So and then you have to figure out like how you're going to get more white cards, basically. It's probably doable with that. It's not as consistent, because I'm trying to think of like another white card that you want to play. I don't know, you can think about it. Like you might be able to put 2 of the like Timeless Dragon things in that can cycle for planes or something, just to give you more, like I said, more white cards. But then I think that's an interesting start, because basically what you have is you have a method to pitch the extra Leyline. So first of all, you take big advantage of like the Leyline's text. Like basically if you like Grief Scam on turn 1 with a Leyline in play, and then you play Sign of Draco turn 2, you're probably winning the game. I mean, I know some people say like, oh, if you Grief Scam turn 1, you're going to win the game no matter what. Maybe, maybe not, but it's going to be really hard to deal with. Similar, I think even like a Solitude Scam, like your opponent plays a creature and then you Solitude it, scam it, then it's also going to be hard for your opponent to deal with. I guess the other card, you could play a couple Ephemerates. I think the Undying Mouse this should be the new card, but this is obviously from a few months ago. The not dead after all. But anyway, you could maybe play a couple Ephemerates. The downside with Ephemerates are that it doesn't give you the +1/+1 counter. Sometimes that can be relevant, but it might be right to play some kind of split of like 4 Undying Malice, 2 Ephemerate or something like that. You could also play some number of the Troll land cyclers to get your black card count up if you need it. But anyway, I think what you want to be doing with the Leyline of the Guildpact is something unfair like this. So this has a way to get rid of the dead kind of multiple Leylines, where you're like, hey, I'm going to pitch this to Grief. I can pitch it to Solitude. I can discard it with Kavu still. And you're kind of doing, like I said, unfair stuff to apply pressure in combination with it. So obviously, if you get the Scion on board, it's great, but your deck's still going to be pretty functional, even if you don't have assembled the combo of Scion plus Invasion. And if you do assemble a combo, like I said, if you somehow get a Scion plus like any of these threats on board with Guildpact, then it's probably over anyway. And you have a lot of threats to kind of do that. So I think that's what most interests me. Again, this is another deck Fade 07 list. I think he'll probably play something similar, because I think this was his first thought too, was like I said, maybe you replace Fury with Solitude, you replace an Invasion with the Guildpact, replace like 1 ring with Binding, and then you want to add maybe a few Ephemerates or something just to kind of do more unfair stuff. Maybe you have a Troll, things like that. We'll just show it right now. That's the kind of idea, and this is where I would start for if you're starting later on the Guildpact. Of course, if you want to, you can jam it in the regular shell and put it in your flex slots and see how it performs. I think it just needs a little more. It needs ways to get rid of excess copies. It needs ways to still be good. Beyond just like I need to assemble this plus Sign of Draco and then do my thing. So. But anyway, hope you guys enjoy this type of video. I know I usually do the longer gameplay, but I just wanted to do something shorter because a lot of people were asking about the new cards, and we're on the eve of the new set. So if you enjoy this kind of content, you can subscribe. Thanks for watching.